Hi, everybody. I'm here to talk about our story. So, the first question that we came up with was when and where did you guys meet? Who were we with? What was the occasion? And what was your first impression? We met at a bar in San Francisco called Element. It was my partying days, so I was out every weekend with my friends. And that night, it was just a regular night, no special occasion. I was with a couple of my girls, Justine, Joa, my friend from New York, Chris, and a lot of other people that I just knew, and we were all at one place to celebrate whatever. I know that it was December of 2008, so we just decided to go out and meet up. And the reason why I knew about JR being there was because of one of my other friends was dating one of his friends, and I guess it was their boys' night out and our girls' night out, so we all ended up at the same place. And from there, we were just introduced to each other. Jared didn't remember anything about me after that night. He was pretty drunk, and yeah, he just couldn't remember who I was. But my first impression of him was that he was cute. I had seen pictures of him before through our other friend, and I knew he went to Reardon. I knew he was a couple years older than me, and I actually went to school at Skyline with one of his other boys, and I always saw pictures of him, and I said, "Wow, he's cute," but I thought he was dating somebody or he just wasn't for me. So it was just one of those things where I was like, "Damn, he's cute," but probably never. He would probably never be interested in me, kind of thing. Um, how did we start talking? We started talking um, online, and that was when AIM was the stuff back then. It was January of 2009 because I guess it was right after the new year, and my friend actually gave him my screen name, and Jared just IM'd me one night and was like, "Hey, do you remember me? Blah blah blah. I met you when you were with so and so," and it just sparked from there. We would always, or I remember I would go home after I worked my late shift at work, and I would leave my computer signed on, and I would just stay signed on, but no away message or anything. And sometimes he would be on, but his away message was on. So I would just leave my computer there while I would get settled in from work, and kind of just wait to see if he would IM me. And it became more of a routine every night where he would get off from 24 and I was off from Walgreens, and we would just keep talking. And he would be like, "Hey, how was your day?" And I would say the same, and we would just really try to get to know each other. And I really enjoyed it. Like, I would get really butthurt if he wouldn't IM me, and I would refuse to IM him if I didn't get anything. So that's how that started. And there was one night where it was probably like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I was exhausted. And I know he probably was exhausted too, but and I didn't want the conversation to end, but I had, school and work the next day and I needed to get off. So I was just like, "Yeah, you know what? I'm sorry to cut this conversation, but I have to go to sleep. I'm really tired. I'm fighting it. And, um, I'll just talk to you tomorrow or something." And I was surprised because he actually asked for my number because he said he didn't want the conversation to end or that he'll text me or something like that. And I gave him my number and he called me. And the very first thing that I thought about when I heard his voice, after always talking online for maybe like a couple of weeks already, was, wow, he sounded like a fob, but it wasn't anything of it. And I that was my very first impression when we talked on the phone, and he wasn't like that in person. So I just think that that's one of the funniest things that I can remember about our first conversation on the phone when he called me. Um, and from then, he would just call or text me, and it was pretty consistent too for the beginning. Um, what attracted you to him? Everything about JR is very attractive. I'm not all about looks. Of course, Jair's very handsome, which attracted me probably for the first thing that I saw. But once I got to know him, he was very sincere and he was a gentleman. When we did start going out on dates, he would always he would always open my door, and he would always ask me if I wanted to eat or if I wanted anything, and he was just a straight up gentleman, and to this day he still is. He probably doesn't open doors as much as he used to, but when he remembers, he definitely does. And that, I think that's probably I'm crying. That's probably the best thing that I can remember about me being attracted to him, is that he was just a good guy. Um, where was our first date? Our first official date was when he asked me to go to the Boys to Men concert at the Mezzanine. I remember being at work one day and I just got a text from him, and he was like, "Oh, what are you doing on this day?" It was a Saturday, and it was saying, "Would you like to go to the Boys to Men concert with me?" And I was just like, "Whoa, yeah!" Like, I'm hella down. And that was our first official date. I mean, we went on dates before, like to the movies and stuff like that, but I think that was our first official date, knowing that we were dating and really trying to get to know each other at that point. And if you want to count, or if he thinks that I should count, the other date was when we were still talking and we went to go see Paul Blart, but he was falling asleep, and I don't think that really counted as a date. So that's that. How many dates did you guys go on until it became official? We dated for a while, which definitely wasn't something I was used to, and I can't pinpoint how many exactly, but we went on a lot, and he knew, and he emphasized to me that he needed to be sure about me and before jumping into any relationship. We were both open with each other about where we were gonna be at. Um, he introduced me to his family, and he has two sisters, so who I love kind of like, as my sisters too. And, he introduced me to them, and he was just like, if you can get along with them, like that's a really good sign. And um, I think when he introduced me to his family was when he knew that I would be good enough for him. And yeah, I mean, my family, they loved him, and they still do. And um, there were rough patches when I can think back to how we were dating. I wasn't sure if we were even ever going to be official, and I felt like I was wasting my time. But JR did a good job at letting me know where we stood, and I'm very grateful for that. Um, who asked out who, and how did they ask? Wow. Well, our anniversary date is March 5th, 2009, and he asked me out March 4th, closer to midnight, so that's why it's March 5th. But I remember being at his apartment and we were just watching a movie, and I was kind of, to be honest with you guys, I was really frustrated because I didn't know if it was leading to anywhere. And I called in sick that day, and I told him, and he was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go home and listen to stuff. I'm gonna listen to music all day." And at the time, it was Ryan Leslie, so we had this inside joke about a song, and he was like, "Oh, guess who's gonna go home and listen to Ryan Leslie all day?" And I was just like, "Who?" And he was like, "Me, duh." And I called in sick from work, and I stayed with him the whole day at his apartment, and we watched movies all day. And that was it. He wasn't trying to make a move on me or anything. We really just enjoyed each other's presence that night. And it was getting really late, and I was ready to go. And luckily, I live close by, so he was saying bye to me. And before I got up, he was like, "I wanted to ask you something." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Would you be my girlfriend? What would you say if I asked you to be my girlfriend?" And I was I thought he was kidding because that's the kind of person JR is. And he was just like, "Would you be my girlfriend?" And I said yes. And you know, um, it was just a really good night, and I definitely didn't expect it. JR's good at that. He's good at doing things when you least expect it in probably a very romantic way. So that was that. And he walked me to my car because it was far. And he said, "Can I have a kiss?" And so I gave him a kiss, and that was our first um, official kiss as a couple. Uh, what was the most romantic thing that he's ever done for me? There's so many. Like I said, like I just said, JR does things when you least expect it. And for our second year anniversary, he actually set up his room at the apartment with all of these balloons. So we went to dinner, and we came back to the apartment, and it was late already. We were ready to go to sleep, but I opened the door and there was a purple heart balloon on the doorknob. So I was like, "Wow, thank you." And then I opened the door to his room, and there was just like a ton of purple balloons everywhere, and purple is my favorite color. So that's why he flooded the room with a big number 2 balloon and purple balloons all around it. And so I think that was probably one of the most romantic things he's ever done for me. Especially being together for 2 years, I wasn't expecting anything like that. I always nag him about doing romantic things, but that was probably the most romantic aside from how he proposed. And the last question that we had for the both of us was, when did you know he was the one? I knew he was the one when his apartment actually burned down, and uh, I was freaking out because I parked my car and I walked in and I saw all these firefighters, and um, I was walking towards the apartment and I saw all of them running in and out of it, and I was totally freaked out. I didn't know what was going on, and I saw him and I was like, "Are you okay? Is everything okay?" And I was just freaking out because I didn't know what happened. Luckily, it was just a closet portion and the upstairs mostly that got affected, but I was scared for his safety. And I think after then, he started staying at a hotel while they were fixing his apartment, and we were staying at like either the Westin or it was the Clarion, whatever it was at the time. And I was looking at him one night, and I told him that I loved him, and he told me he loved me back. So that whole experience just made me knew he was the one for me. Um, so he set questions for me to answer aside from these other questions, just like uh, what I had him do. And the first question he has for me was, when was the first time I made you hella when was the first time I made you laugh hella hard? What did I do or say? So, as you all might know or not know, JR is, most of the time, he's never serious. Um, the first time he made me laugh really hard was when people would bring up the fact about kids, and he always says and still does, "I want 6 kids." And for me, like, I always took that as a joke because I don't think I'm capable of having 6 kids. I mean, physically I can, but I don't know. I don't. I don't. I never wanted 6 kids. Not saying that I don't, but I didn't think about it until he actually said it, and that made me laugh really hard because I don't know if he's serious or not. And he still does it, and it still makes me laugh, just not as hard. But the first time I heard him say that, I couldn't stop laughing. Um, what are the top 3 things that I do that annoys you? Let's see. The first one is whenever we're listening to music in the car or wherever we are, he tends to add cuss words in it. And it's like a really nice song. And I get so irritated when he does that because he ruins a song. So that's number one. Number two is when I come home from work, or even when he comes home from work, or whatever, I hate seeing mess. Like, I'm a very organized and clean person, and he will leave. He'll like take off his shoes and never put it where it's supposed to be. He'll take off his socks. He'll never put it away. And I always have to nag him. And I think that's one thing that I do that annoys him is nag. But I mean, that's just how I am as a person. I don't like mess, and I like everything to be in a certain place at a certain time. So that's probably the second thing that he does that annoys me. And the third thing that he does that annoys me is when he doesn't answer my texts. When the iPhone came out with iMessage, I was excited about it because it has those dots that you can see when he texts you or something, or when they're texting back. And even now, sometimes I know I don't personally see the dots, and then I know that he doesn't respond. But sometimes it's a way of me knowing an answer to something that I know that I can't get on the phone because we're both busy at work. And sometimes I have this sense of urgency where I need to know right away. And that's probably the third thing that bothers me, not really annoys me, but bothers me when he doesn't respond. Do you like it better when I'm bald or when I have hair like I do now? When you first started growing out your hair, I didn't like it. It was probably weird because I was used to seeing you bald, but I've gotten used to it. You've had your hair for a couple of years now before the whole comb over hype, and I like it. I like you with hair now. I wasn't used to you having hair in the beginning, which is why I didn't like it. But now that I'm used to seeing you with hair, I actually like it better that way. What famous person do I remind you of, and why? Um, that's actually a trick question because you always told me that you sing like Brian McKnight. So yeah, I could see why you could remind me of Brian McKnight is because of the way that you sing. Um, Jared's a really good singer. He doesn't like to admit it, but he is. And if 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 it wasn't Brian McKnight, then I would have to say Will Ferrell because he imitates a lot of what Will Ferrell does in his movies, in terms of facial expressions or just things that he says. And he really, really, really likes Will Ferrell. And I think he's really funny too, so I like him. And I can see where JR can remind me of Will Ferrell. And let's see. The last question, or actually the second to the last, is what's the one thing that I always do that puts a smile on your face? You do a lot of things. But the one thing that you do that will always put a smile on my face is when you hug me. When you hug me goodbye, or just whenever, when I've had a bad day. When you do your bear hug and kiss me on the forehead, or not even without the kiss on the forehead, that's just something that will always make me smile. I need to stop crying. And the last comment you say on your questions to me is, I want 6 kids. You ready? Honestly, I don't know if I can physically have 6 kids. Financially, I don't know if we'd be able to afford 6 kids. But I'd love to give you kids. Maybe not 6, but definitely one day we're going to have kids sometime soon. Hopefully after the wedding we start having our kids, and I'm ready to share my life with you the rest of my life, and I can't wait to marry you.